Hey guys, it's your boy recording at like 3 o'clock in the morning again today here, and I wasn't planning on making this video at all. I was like, whatever, I'll do it at a different point, but I want to talk about it now because I'm excited because I finally beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. I've been playing this game on and off for almost as long as I can remember. Not literally when I was a child, but when I was pretty young, maybe 10, which would have been like, ooh, like 16 years ago, holy shit. Like when I was 10, my uncle had this game, looked cool, and I was like, hey, I want to play this. So I played it, I got like halfway through, and I had no fucking idea what happened or what I was doing because I took a break. So I restarted it, and that restarted game is what I've just beaten. And it has been literally years. I have been in the middle of playing this game for a very, very long time, playing it on and off as time has gone on. I do in fact plan on doing a second playthrough because I kind of understand better how to play Shin Megami Tensei games now, and I went through a majority of this game with little to no buffs. I mean, if I had a buff on one of my monsters, I would use it, but generally speaking, this is the kind of game where you want to play with buffs and debuffs, or at least one of the two. But anyway, I want to talk about this because I had a great time with it, and I really just want to get off my chest everything that went on in the game and what I think the pros are and what I think the cons are. This game being Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, of course, being part of the Shin Megami Tensei game series line. 4 and 4 Apocalypse are on the DS or 3DS or something like that, and then 5 has been hinted to have been coming out for the last several years. We haven't gotten anything, but I finally got around to beating Nocturne. And so the thing about Nocturne is that Nocturne is a game, at the base of it, the summary is like, you and your friends go to visit your teacher who's in the hospital. You go visit your teacher in the hospital, you notice some weird cult shit going on, and then essentially the end of the world happens. And you end up as what is called the Demi-Fiend, because of because of Lucifer, essentially. And now you're just kind of trying to figure out what the fuck happened, what are you gonna do, where are your friends, anything like that. So first I want to talk about the gameplay. So majority of the gameplay is going to be, of course, dungeon crawling, it's going to be traversing the world map, and it's going to be battling. So dungeon crawling. The dungeons in SMT can be, at least Nocturne, can be really bullshit, but to be honest, I personally, playing this game even on and off, didn't really have any trouble until I'd say the last couple of dungeons, and specifically the Tower of Kagetsuchi. Now, I'm going to be honest here, I didn't get the True Demon ending, mostly because I didn't realize that I would get locked out of it once I got to the Tower of Kagetsuchi. Now, be aware of this. I'm going to try and not have any spoilers here, but if you're going to try and go for what is called the True Demon ending, which is an ending a lot of people end up going for, you cannot get it if you go into the final dungeon, which is called the Tower of Kagetsuchi. Just be aware of that, because it actually ended up fucking me over. Like, I legitimately didn't realize that. And so I got like a little bit in and went, oh yeah, I gotta finish doing the whatever Kalpa. And then I go in and I'm locked out. And I was like, fucking damn it. So I could not get that ending. But for the most part, I didn't really have a lot of trouble with the dungeons. I mean, they can be confusing, but it's nothing that like you just paying attention and understanding how the map works. You know, if you just understand that, you can usually finagle your way there. If not, there's no shame using a guide. If I'm being completely frank, for the last couple dungeons when I got lost, because I was like, I really just at that point wanted to beat the game because of how long I'd been playing it, I used a guide, and it really wasn't that big of a deal, honestly. Traversing the world map also isn't really an issue. I did die a couple of times early in the game because there's some random demons that might have like Hamamudo kind of skills, and I just really was not prepared for that. And it is possible, technically, at least in one part of the game that I remember, to accidentally wander into an area that you are not high enough level for and die. But that's not super common, or at the very least I didn't find it to be super common, so don't really worry about that. Traversing the overworld, it's really just like a little character thing, like a little spray on a big map. Kind of reminds me of like older JRPGs might do, like, you know, having a huge map with a little character that you traverse around, and then you enter towns as you know, get close to them or whatever, like Legend of Legaia or like Final Fantasy VII or whatever like that. So it's pretty bog standard as far as I consider it to be. And lastly, it's going to be battling. Now, battling is where we might have some issues. So on the surface, you know, battling isn't really that hard. It has the press turn system, which is slightly different than if you're used to playing Persona. And the reason I keep referencing Persona is because a lot of people who haven't played an SMT game, who wouldn't know what a press turn battle system is, might only be familiar with Persona and the way that game works. So very similarly, you're going to want to exploit the enemy's weakness. But unlike Persona, exploiting the enemy's weakness does not knock them down and then, you know, you can get an all-out attack. fact. In SMT, and at very least in Nocturne, I'm just going to talk specifically about in Nocturne, you're going to want to exploit the weaknesses to just get more turns in general. That, for the most part, is no problem. Although I do want to say the difficulty in SMT games in general, and also, of course, in Nocturne, it is generally harder than Persona. So if you're used to Persona difficulty, you're really going to want to pay attention in this game. Don't do what I did, okay? I didn't play this game after Persona. I played just other JRPGs, and I did not understand the significance of using buffs and debuffs. It can be said that people exaggerate, how difficult it can be without buffs and debuffs, but I'm specifically talking about you're gonna want to use at least some buffs or debuffs. You don't have to have a whole party decked out like a lot of people do, because in my playthrough, I really didn't even though I knew I really should be using them, I didn't deck my party out. If they had them, then that was cool. But I didn't go out of my way to fuse demons with like particular buffs or debuffs, and I still beat the ending just fine. Now, I don't know if I would have made it through the Kalpas, but I can tell you, or all the rest of the Kalpas, than where I was. But I can tell you that I beat the main game and some of the additional side content perfectly fine. I mean, it might have been rough fights, but for the most part, I did pretty well. So just know that you're going to want to use buffs and debuffs, but you don't have to go insane with it. But I would recommend being aware that that is something you are definitely going to want to do. You're also going to want to be recruiting demons. You know, sometimes they'll offer to join you if they're close to death, or something most of the time you're going to have to negotiate with them. And demon negotiation can at times be just completely fucking random. It'll just be like, just say whatever you want to them, because I've said, you know, one option or the other option, and they've hated both. So for the most part, just kind of do whatever. Fusing is pretty simple. You go and you fuse. You play Persona, you know how fusing works. At the Cathedral of Shadows, you can also do sacrificial fusions, where you could sacrifice a third monster, and it'll like beef up your sacrifice. I never really fucked with that, but that's also a really good option. What I really want to talk about in terms of battling are boss battles, because here's where I have a slight issue, and that is that for the most part, even including fiend battles, I personally, even with limited buffs and debuff spells, I didn't really have that hard of a time in this game. You know, I mean, I had a little bit of a rough time, but I can't remember like excessively dying or feeling like, well, fuck this, you know, like most of the time I blamed it on myself. If I died, I was like, yeah, I just sucked that time, or I didn't know the enemy's weakness, or, you know, whatever. But specifically in the final dungeon, I personally feel in the Tower of Kagetsuchi, no spoilers for the plot, that the final dungeon area is kind of complete bullshit. First of all, moving around in there can be a fucking nightmare, depending on which part of the tower you're at. So it can be a fucking nightmare. But specifically, I hate those bosses, because I felt like those were bosses that even if you were super prepared, they just cuck you unless you know they're coming. For instance, if I remember correctly, there's a boss in the tower that's only really affected by electric moves. So if even if you had a great team, you don't have anybody with Zionga, go fuck yourself, right? It's like, and there's another boss much later that can curse you if you don't have something null to ailments or curse. They can just curse you and turn you into a fly, and then you just can't do anything, and it'll never wear off, and you can't cure it. It's stuff like that where it feels like it's so unfair. Like, even if I had a good setup, even if I had a bunch of my like weaknesses or whatever covered, no matter what, if I didn't have almost a specific setup, I would get fucked. Like the curse thing I was talking about, turning into a fly, you better have your whole team doing that. Oh, by the way, they'll also use one-hit KO light bless skill, so you better hope they're not weak to that. Like, it just feels not necessarily like tough, because if it was tough, I would get over it and just say whatever, but it kind of felt unfair. I felt like I had to actively go out of my way and like do shit that I felt like I didn't need to do to get monsters to beat that boss. And I understand that's just kind of part of how the game plays. That's totally fine. But I felt like there was such a huge difference between fighting every other boss in the game and then that one asshole. So I definitely recommend, you know, saving at every chance you get, because if you happen to just get completely fucked by like a random demon, you are going to be so genuinely upset. And if you've never played this game before, or if you don't know how SMT works, don't play on a super hard difficulty. I mean, if you want to do it, I guess go ahead. Some people are like that, but I absolutely recommend playing on normal, because you're going to want to get used to the system and the game and everything before you decide to up the ante and go like super hard or whatever. And now I covered all those kinds of basics, I want to talk about just like the game overall. Overall, even though I felt like it could be kind of unfair at times, I think this is actually a really amazing game. So, like, I really like the way it looks, even though a lot of it is kind of dreary and dark. I like that there's demons running around. Most humans are in the form of ghosts. The Labyrinth of Amala is truly a labyrinth. I don't know what's going on or where I'm going or what, or like anything that's happening. I really like getting the demons. I really liked, like I said, talking to the demons everywhere. I don't know. I like the way the story is set up. SMT typically has kind of like a law, chaos, neutral, whatever. I like the reason system. Some people don't like it, but for this particular game, I think it fits well enough. I like the reason system. I'm gonna be fair here, I never remembered the names of your friends, Osamu and Chiaki, until I was playing just recently. I was like watching a guy do a video about it, and I was like, oh yeah, Osamu Chiaki, yeah, that's right, while I was playing this game. But I like the way the reasons work, and I kind of understand how each reason came about when I'm remembering the game, if I'm remembering correctly. And I really like the way it was set up. I like the music, and the music is really weird. Like, the dungeons don't really have a lot of music. They'll have like, the dungeons have music, but it's not like peppy or anything. And I like when you get into the battle, it's like, wah! It's like the weirdest battle theme ever, unless it's like a boss sometimes or whatever, but like a basic battle theme, it's really weird. I really like the opening theme. I really like that. I really like the opening, like what the title screen looks like. I like the way your character looks. I like when you're low on health, you're the colors of your tattoo things look different. I just really, really like the way this game looked, the way it played, the way it felt. There are negatives to be sure, but aside from maybe certain things being what I think are just unfair and not tough necessarily, I really think that's my only complaint because, even though the dungeons are confusing, for the most part, I don't use guides. Except for the last few when I just wanted to beat the game, I always did it on my own. I liked fusing demons, seeing, what they would do. I had like not OTP, that's a different thing. I had like my top demons, my OP demons that I was like, these are my best boys, I come at them. Samael, I think, was one of my guys in my final, beating the final boss party, and he came in clutch as fuck because I'm like a physical build, but I also was a healer because I didn't trust my demons at all. I wanted to be the healer, so I had myself and the other guy, and we were like doing our shit. Like, I really like relying on the demons, and as much as like personas for the characters, in a way, I kind of like this game for the demons, even though the demons are not characters. Don't get me wrong, the demons don't have personalities really, but I like each time I end up playing the game, I have like completely different teams with different move sets, and I end up playing the game differently, and and my strategies sometimes tend to change, and I really, really like that about these types of games. That's why I end up replaying even Pokemon and stuff over and over and over again, because I kind of like that team building aspect to it too. And so, ultimately, I really don't have a lot to say. I don't want to go overboard because as much as I love SMT and Persona and all the spin-off, all the side games that aren't just the mainline SMT games, I haven't finished a lot of them. I haven't played and finished a lot of them just due to I call it Dr. Calamitous syndrome, where I end up starting games and never beating them. I do that all the fucking time. And so I've beaten all the Persona games because those are easier for me to kind of play, just based on the way Persona plays. But now I've beaten Nocturne, and I would like to replay it. But so now I'm going to go ahead and try and give all those other SMT games that I never fully beat a try. But I also want to replay Nocturne and try and get the true demon ending this time, because I totally cucked myself out of it due to dumb, poor decisions on my part. I'm stupid.